Welcome to the Combative Nerds Podcast. Join us.
Hey guys, we don't have time for intros or traffic signals. This is a rapid fire episode. Let's get to it. Oh, and IEG. My bad. Sorry about your cat.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Raiderlance and
Icy-eyed gnome.
We are doing part 7 of our rapid fire conversation. This time we're going to talk about top movie picks. Keep the list short, maybe about 3 to 5. And if you want to make this a little longer, we can talk about movies you couldn't pay me to watch again. If we want to include shows, we could talk about WandaVision in that category. But, let's move on. It'll probably get too long. So, brother, top movie pick. Give me one of your top 3. Doesn't have to be in order.
All right, so one of my favorite movies of all time is Machinist with Christian Bale. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I do know it destroyed his body, right? His endocrine system and all that. That's where he had to get super thin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the only thing I knew about it. Okay. My brain's not working. Who's that horror movie director? Stephen King. There we go. Okay. Stephen King. He made a movie called, was it Slender?
Thinner.
Thank you. Okay. So I saw that show or that movie, Thinner, and when I was young, and I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. So when I saw The Machinist, I think of the movie Thinner, and I automatically had an adverse reaction and didn't want to watch the show. So I didn't want to watch the movie. So I know that's silly, but that's why I never watched it. But I did hear good things about it.
Yeah, so it was a little different. The storyline wasn't centered around the basis of him becoming thin. It was just something that kind of happened in the transition of the storyline, right? So, like, he started out as, like, a very anorexic-looking individual who's got, like, a lot of issues. He can't sleep. He drinks coffee all the time. He works as a machinist in a shop and so on and so forth. But there's like a lot of different things that kind of play into the fact that he is so thin. It's not based around the fact that he's trying to become thin like Stephen King's Thinner. So it's just kind of like the fact that he is so thin and so anorexic looking is just a byproduct of the storyline. It's not a main factor. Obviously, it does have some pull into the storyline, but not as much as you'd think. The actual storyline is much more complex, and it's one of those makes you think type movies. And I really enjoy those kinds of movies, and you'll see that throughout my picks, I'm sure.
For my first pick, not in any particular order, I'm going to do something very easy and simple.
My pick is Transformers the movie from the 1980s.
Formative. I literally felt my balls drop as a kid into my theater chair when I heard Optimus Prime say, Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost. Like that, I would just like, my voice got deeper all of a sudden. And then my heart broke when he died on the table. And I don't care whether it was garbage or it was just to sell more toys, that movie and that scene and them kicking into Stan Bush, You Got the Touch, like that's it. Put that on my tombstone and call it a wrap.
Like Megan Fox wasn't a contributing factor at all for you?
No, I wholly reject the Bayverse.
Okay, I got you.
Next one for you.
I will say that I enjoyed Transformers, the first one. The next 7 that they made was not my favorite, but
Megan Fox was great. I'm not gonna lie. I became a fan, and I understood the technology and the animation or the graphics, and they had to take some liberties, but not that many, dude.
Yeah.
Just not that many.
All right.
So go for it.
So another one that I really liked, and my wife would slap me if she were near, but I really enjoyed Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that movie.
Yeah, it was.
Did you know that was based off of a Spanish movie?
Yes, I did.
So I watched the Spanish movie. It wasn't as good as Vanilla Sky. I mean, they didn't have the budget. They didn't have the actors. But it had the essence of it. But I actually really enjoyed Vanilla Sky as well.
Yeah, it was a really good. It was one of those movies that you get done watching it and you start rethinking certain scenes and you start putting things together and
yep.
And it was just one of those movies you really have to watch like one or two times to, consecutively to kind of really get and enjoy. It was very thought provoking. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies that kind of inspired you in an odd sort of way after you watch it.
So a couple things to add to this, my experience with watching Vanilla Sky. So in college, didn't have a TV, just had my laptop to do stuff. And so I would go to, back when they had Blockbusters and they had the used DVD portions for like $10, or sometimes they'd have a deal. I got Vanilla Sky. And that movie made way more sense. I think when they had the director's cut, it's not the director's cut, I apologize, the director's commentary, I believe it was, or some type of actor commentary, movie made a lot more sense to me. And one thing I did appreciate was the initial scene when he's running around, I think in downtown Manhattan, and everything's empty. They said that was one of the most expensive scenes ever in cinema at that time, of course.
Yeah.
Because what they had to do is they had to rent those blocks and get all the people. And this is Manhattan, one of the busiest streets. Oh, wasn't it Times Square when he ran through?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and so they were just saying it was super expensive for 10 seconds of film, 15 seconds of film. And so I always thought that was super cool. It was something I didn't even think of. So I really enjoyed that movie too.
What's your next one?
So this one's pretty easy. This comes from my martial arts and other training that I've done. It has to be the John Wick franchise. That is by far just I watch that when I want to get pumped to go to the gym or when I want to do my other training. And it made me enjoy Keanu Reeves in a way. You know, most people enjoy Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. Right. I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it as more, movie, cinematic martial arts. I didn't look at it. John Wick. Oh my God. John Wick is one of the few movies I watch and I'm like, I recognize that move. Oh yeah, he landed the way he was supposed to. He twisted this the way he was supposed to. And then John Wick 1, amazing for the storyline. The movie scene where he fights the people coming into his house, the spa scene in the red, I think it was the red room or the red circle. Just amazing choreography, gung fu. I think they call it gung fu is what they called it. Number 2, wasn't that big of a fan of. I'll be honest, they had a lot of cool stuff. Wasn't a huge fan. Number 3, the dog scene with Halle Berry. Holy crap. Maybe the best 5 minutes of cinema I've ever seen. I still jump out of my seat when watching that. Didn't like the storyline as much, but the action. Like, you know how people will watch Transformers for the action and not necessarily the storyline?
Right.
I reject that in the Bayverse, but for John Wick, yes, whatever storyline that they fell away in John Wick 2 and 3 is made up by the action, in my opinion. I love it. I will always love it. I will make sure my son is indoctrinated and trained so that he has some of those skills when he moves through this life. So, what about your next one?
I want to make a quick comment on the John Wick thing. I love those movies. And one of the biggest things for me is the fact that they reload when they're supposed to. Right.
Yes.
It's not like,
yep.
Like the magazine drops after the shots are done when they're supposed to pretty much every single time. So it's not like, one of those other action flicks where they have 47 bullets in the magazine. It's, they're reloading when they're supposed to. And that makes it like more authentic and it gives me much more of a good feeling when I watch those kinds of movies.
So when watching John Wick 1, which I still think is the best, even though it has the least amount of action and stunts. So the firearm he used as his primary weapon was a P-30 Heckler & Koch known as an H&K. And it had a compensator on it. And I went through the scene where his home is getting invaded. And that type of firearm has because it's not California, has a 15-round magazine. And I went through the shots, and he literally uses 15 rounds before he reloads. Like, it was that accurate. I think they also did that in the Red Circle club scene, where they actually used, when you get to a higher level of training, so I've heard that you start counting rounds out of your magazine when shooting, as opposed to just pulling the trigger. And they utilize it. They do it. It's not realistic. I was talking to a LAPD officer who's former military, intel. And he said those movies aren't real, that stuff. And I'm like, okay, the moves are real. Yes, an application. We all know that's not really going to go down like that. But it is one of the most realistic choreography, fight scenes, gun shooting scenes that I've ever seen. There's other good ones out there. Absolutely. A lot of these, Black Hawk Down and all that stuff. But I'm talking about like action hero type of stuff. Like Jason Bourne. Yeah. Okay, cool. Better than 007, but John Wick, to me, is the peak and pinnacle of what an action movie should be.
Right.
So, your next one.
So my next one is going to be Fight Club, which is based off of Chuck Palahniuk's novel.
That's a good one.
I love that movie.
That's a good one. I didn't know there was a novel.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chuck Palahniuk's a crazy writer. The dude's like absolutely insane, but like in a good way. He's like the Zack Snyder of the author world. This dude's like in good shape. He's like jacked, and he's like kind of nuts, but like all of his work is like really interesting. He's got like a really interesting perspective and everything he writes. So he's actually had a couple of movies that were transformed into, or a couple of movies that had been transformed from like novels that he'd written. I think 3 of them thus far have been converted. But Fight Club is one of my best ones. Around Project Mayhem, everything in the novel kind of starts to separate from the film version, but they do it in a very tactful way, and he was very involved in the process. So I really, really enjoyed that movie, and I think Edward Norton and Brad Pitt did a fantastic job kind of displaying the 2 different variations of the same character.
From my recollection, every time I've talked to somebody about Fight Club, and you have, people from different walks of life, it seems like everybody could enjoy it. Everybody has that human struggle. Especially when you speak to men, they have that additional struggle of being a man, masculinity. People are now calling it toxic masculinity, roughhousing. It had so many deep conversations built into it, but it was kind of like, what do they call that? Not the switch and bait, but they're like drawing your attention over here while they're feeding you the actual stuff. And so it wasn't like in your face or preachy, but everybody got it. Everybody just seemed to get Fight Club from my experience in talking with people. I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Do you have an honorable mention or another?
Not yet. I still have one more.
Okay.
And this is going to be contentious between you and me.
Okay.
Because I know the answer, and I don't like you for it. It has to be the movie Serenity.
Oh my!
Have you watched it yet?
I have not.
You are not a good person. That's all I have to say. End of discussion.
I'm sorry.
Serenity is the perfect movie. Perfect. If I only had to watch one movie, it would be that one, because it has everything. It has life lessons. It has comedy. It has pain. It's sci-fi. It has the I guess he's not the anti-hero. What do they call it? The chaotic good.
Yeah, chaotic good, hero. Chaotic evil. Yeah.
Yeah, the chaotic good hero. As a hooker. I mean, what more do you need in the storyline?
You sold me on the last one. If you had mentioned that at the very beginning, I would have already watched the film. Probably paused it a couple times.
The best fight scene is in a whorehouse. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They call them companions there, but we all know what they are.
I'm just kidding.
Inara was gorgeous. It's such a perfect movie. That is the one movie I can play in the background, still concentrate, smile, still laugh at all the jokes. It is perfect. And is one of the this is going to have to be a different episode, greatest tragedies in our lifetime. That the Source show got 9 episodes, maybe 10, and the Kardashians are on like their 9th season and they're billionaires. Just, this is the devil's world, and that is point 1, paragraph 1, proof that is true.
They canceled Dark Angel to bring Firefly on air, so F you. And Firefly, or whatever the hell. Serenity.
You know what? Some great sacrifices had to be made to bring that once-in-a-lifetime show to be, right? Certain stars have to die and explode to push that carbon into the universe to produce new life. That's what I see by Dark Angel. going away to create Firefly. All I see is Botox and injections when I see Kardashians.
I'll agree about the Kardashians, but Jessica Alba and Jensen Ackles and Dark Angel, you're an asshole.
All right. Do you have an honorable mention?
God. So as far as movies and stuff are concerned, like one of my favorite, and I have to just because like I'm a huge comic book nerd. Everybody asks me like what my favorite Marvel movie is. And like I answer the same way, honestly, every single time. It's Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. It is the pinnacle of Marvel movies. It tells a story. There's not too much fluff. Like there's just enough action. There's just enough comedy. There's just enough everything. It's the perfect Marvel movie. And so I just for honorable mention's sake, I have to say Iron Man is my honorable mention for all Marvel movies.
Okay, I'm going to dovetail on this conversation.
Okay.
I do not disagree with any of your points, but I do disagree with your selection.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I think the first Avengers movie was the best Marvel movie. Because they had everything you talked about, and in my opinion, began the process of interweaving stories. The fight scene when the Chitauri comes out and attack New York, and they flip from scene to scene and interweave all the action sequences between all of the heroes, from Hawkeye shooting the arrow and it landing on this person, and then Captain America doing that, and it flipping over to Iron Man, and then the Hulk and Thor take down that big, snake monster. Like, that was the perfect scene where I don't think I've ever seen a superhero movie where it actually not looked like a team, but felt like a team.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But I do agree with you from the points you made of Iron Man. I just liked more so the Avengers and how I actually felt like this was a team movie.
So, counterpoint.
Okay.
And I understand where you're coming from. That is like saying that Terminator 2 Judgment Day is like the far superior film, which we all know it to be,
sure,
but it would not be the superior film without the origin story.
All right, that's good.
So, like, as a
Fair
singular
enough.
film, Iron Man wins hands down. Avengers was amazing, and I think it did catapult characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe into what we have now, which we're now moving into like phase 5 and 6 and whatever. But it did catapult all the characters into one direction. But like as a singular standalone movie, I don't think it was superior to Iron Man.
I will yield the field to you on that one. As a singular standalone movie, I cannot think of another Marvel movie that can compare to Iron Man. I completely agree with you. So you're right. It is an unfair comparison. Well, we have went long on this one.
Yeah.
Any last words on this? Or was this something we're going to have to do our next top 3?
I mean, we could talk about movies all day long. I've got like a ton of movies to even talk about. Well, we can do another episode on that, and we'll discuss some more movies next time.
All right, and I will think of more offensive things to say. Other than, well, nothing I can say can really be more offensive than Ben Affleck as Batman. All right, thanks everybody. Goodbye.
That's it. That's our show. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you win an argument. You make your point and then quickly stop recording and or hang up the phone. Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? Well, that concludes our September Rapid Fire show with IEG. Not sure what show will be next, but please do us the favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combative Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next episode.